said, just fade it out. It seems natural.
Everybody's a critic. Oh, welcome to another episode of Above Average Black Men. Tonight, we're going to talk about Philly sports. It's a good time to be a Phillies fan, man, or a Philadelphia fan, period. So, shout out to Chris, who's not here. He's on his route. He'll be back shortly, but not in time to make the show, of course. And so you got me, Chris Pender Sr.
Devin Pender. Here to remind you all to like, follow, subscribe, share, and we're here to empower, inspire, and uplift the community. I'm sure Chris is listening somewhere. He's proud. I really said it correctly.
He's not listening because he's in the airplane, so he won't hear anything until he lands. But but we're gonna talk about the Philly sports scene. I'm gonna get a shout out to my supposed to be guest Kurt Jenkins, but he had a little family emergency, so he's not with us tonight. But he's definitely and his wife are with us in our prayers, and we pray the very best for him and look forward to having him on. Kurt is kind of a local sports guru, sports enthusiast. He covers all the sports, hockey, soccer, and he chimes on all the sports, man. I think he'd be a great guest tonight, but unfortunately, we won't have his input. But Philly sports, man, I think is an exciting time to be a Phillies fan, Philadelphia fan. And for me, you don't remember this because you weren't born, but, I remember being back in the college, man, the late 70s, the early 80s. And actually, you may not realize this, Philadelphia once called the city of winners because all our teams wouldn't win championships, but they would make the playoffs. The Flyers actually won the cup a couple times, man. I think in '80 the Phillies won the World Series. Eagles didn't win the Super Bowl. The Six used to go to the championship. The conference finals, lose to Boston or lose in a chip. And so we were really good for a long period of time. We just couldn't get over the hump.
I was about to say it's kind of crazy because I don't want to sound like a downer, but in my lifetime, with the exception of 2008, 2017. I've seen a lot of, for lack of better terms, losing.
Yeah, Philly's been interesting. I have the long-term view. I was sharing this with some other day and actually posted it. I remember when the Eagles, they had a guy named Riley Henry who would run back punts. So he would run back like a punt to the other team's 40, other team's 30. And then we had a kicker, Tony Franklin, was barefoot, who kicked 50-plus yard field goals. So they win like 9-0. They went on defense. They had Bill Berge, they had Randy Logan, they had Franklin Master, Reggie Wilkes. So they had a solid defensive front, a defensive team, and they would win games literally like 9-0, or lose games like 14-9, where they would just kick off field goals. Even the year they went to the Super Bowl, they were a little better. Ron Jaworski, which was not great. But they had Will Montgomery, who was a decent running back. Howard Carmichael. They had some weapons, but they won. I remember they beat the Raiders 12-9, all field goals. All field goals. Game? No, during the regular season. During the regular season. So when they were to face the Raiders again in the Super Bowl, it was assumed that Philly was going to win, but they didn't. Ron Jaworski was on 3 interceptions to Rob Martin, the same guy, which is today is still a Super Bowl record, and they lost. And then we all know the infamous loss they had when Don McNabb got sick on the last drive, and they were driving for, they were only down 3 at the time. I don't think people realized.
It was a close game.
Yeah, they were only down 3. That was a game-winning drive or game-tying drive. So, and the ball ricocheted off somebody's hand. So there's been a ton of near misses. But it's a great time to be a Phillies. You got to think about it, man. The Phillies went to the World Series, but nobody expected.
Yeah.
Actually won a game or 2.
I did not see that coming.
Yeah, and they added some quality players this year, so they should be back in the running next year.
Sky's the limit.
The soccer union made it to the finals.
I did recently just discover that. See, those are sports I really want to get more into. The soccer and the hockey, different sports like that.
Hockey, not so good. The Flyers still kind of,
still getting it together.
Yeah, they got to get it together, man. But, and the Sixers are still yet to be determined.
They look good, though.
The Sixers are still
good this
year. But I'm still not a Doc fan. But anyway, that's a different show. The still Sixers, they got to win, though. It's nice to look good during the regular season, but you got to win. We've seen enough of them winning, getting to the playoffs. We've seen, getting out the first round. We did conference championship. They almost did it, but, we got to have it, man. They lost to Miami, and they actually lost to Toronto in the conference championship. That was 4 years ago, I think. Yeah,
when Kawhi hit that shot.
Yeah,
that
and became famous.
That was a heartbreaker.
So they've been around. They've been, buzzing around. They just haven't got over the hope. So over the hump. But if you look at the Eagles, man, they're underdogs. Don't ask me how. When your starter is 14-1, and you're crushing people. They're favorites in the Super Bowl, but people still don't give them the respect. It's the big question mark behind them. People still asking the question, is Jalen Hurts, a franchise quarterback? There was actually a poll I saw when they said he was the 10th, the 8th worst quarterback to make the Super Bowl. And we got some quarterbacks who won the Super Bowl who suck.
Yeah.
Trent Dilfer, those guys were terrible.
Yeah, that's surprising because Jalen Hurts, and I feel like the players feel this way too. He's gotten better every year. You can see he actually puts in the work. When he first came in the league, he wasn't that great of a thrower. Now he can throw a tight spiral. He throws a good ball.
But see, I think if you go back and I was looking at a documentary, that's not true. He wasn't the best passer. But if you go back, he completed 75% of his passes one year when he was in Alabama. He led them. They don't get to the national championship game. He got benched in the second half if it wasn't for him. You don't lead your team to the national championship without throwing the football at some point in time. Because everybody knows you're going to run. Mm-hmm. The next year before he left, when he came back in, and he had when Tua got hurt, and he passed. So it's this whole misnomer about that. It's kind of funny because he got benched. He wasn't a good passer. And if you listen to some guys in the NFL, they'll tell you the same thing. There were some things he needed to work on, but a lot of quarterbacks, not many quarterbacks, turn out to be Tom Brady. There's a lot of quarterbacks who take a year or two to adjust to the NFL. It's a faster game. Mm-hmm. It's a different game. My attention wasn't to go there. I just think as a black quarterback, he's held at a different standard. Especially a black quarterback who can run. Because now maybe he's a running back. My question is, Steve Young, he was a great scrambler. When he ran, nobody called him, and it was funny because when he first came into the league, people don't know it's Tampa Bay. He ran a lot. Well, Tampa Bay sucked. But even when it's San Fran, he ran in key situations. So it's funny how he never got categorized like that. So it's just interesting how when I hear things, people talk about him, or they talk about, okay, well, he doesn't have a strong arm, and he only won because of who's around him. Well, there's a guy named Joe Montana that's in the Hall of Fame right now that probably didn't throw many. He threw more 5-yard, 80-yard touchdown passes than I've ever seen in my life because he would hit Jerry Rice on a 5-yard snap. He would take off 80 yards down the field. That's why they came up with run after catch, because he used to get credit for these throws. And he didn't have a strong arm. He was accurate, but he did stuff, and he had Hall of Famers around him. John Taylor, Jerry Rice, Dwight Clark, Roger Craig. Nobody ever said he won because of the talent he had around him. That was never a question. Never a question.
That is interesting.
It was, but it's funny when it comes to Jalen Hurts. Now it's a question. Now the question is, well, can he win the big game? There's a long list of quarterbacks who did not win the Super Bowl.
There's a lot that didn't even get there.
Dan Marino, who was probably listed as one of the most prolific and all-time passers, never won a Super Bowl. Never won a Super Bowl. Dan Fouts set all kind of records, never won a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I'm going to list of people who have never won a Super Bowl, but we never questioned, whether they were great quarterbacks. So it just seems to be this double standard. And I don't know what the knock is on Jalen Hurts. I once heard somebody say it's because people don't want to admit they were wrong on him. Because, you hear all these clips now, yeah. Skip Bayless, what's the dude? I can't think of his mouth. Big mouth. Stephen A. Smith. Mm-hmm. All these guys about he's no good. He's not going to be any good, and all this. And the Eagles made a mistake, and Mel Kiper, who was probably the dopiest of them all,
the draft expert.
But that's a funny story because he has no football experience.
That's why I don't get it. A lot of these dudes don't.
They were playing these sound clips of all these people who predicted him to be a bust, which kind of takes away from the credibility of so-called experts. And I just think they won't come back and say now that they were wrong. Like, who is Chris Sims? Your brother was a quarterback, or his dad was a quarterback in NFL. Who are you to be talking about quarterbacks? Yeah. Jalen Hurts will never, and every time he wins something next, he comes up with another excuse. There's a lot of guys out there who I think unfairly, and I think his skin color has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're a black quarterback in the NFL, and you're athletic, that's what you're going to fall into. Because you're the quarterback of the best team in the NFC. Your team is 0-2 without you and 14-1 with you. So I don't know. What else do you have to do?
But to your point, real quick, and I just want to mention this. Shout out to both Jalen and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, man.
A lot of times they say, "Oh, you should switch positions," or, they're not smart enough to play quarterback, or they're not smart enough to process, the changes real quick of a defense or something like that. Now you got two black quarterbacks who are in the Super Bowl, performing at the highest level that you can.
Well, it was funny because that was the knock why they didn't take black quarterbacks, because they said they weren't smart enough. They couldn't read defenses. And it's ironic that in 2022-23, that's the first thing they say about a black quarterback. When he struggles, he can't read defenses. But then you got to get a guy like Trevor Lawrence and those guys who are terrible, and nobody ever says that. Everybody gives them a free pass.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're black, you can't read defenses. So it's just kind of ironic, man, how, because of the color of their skin, that we still deal with some of those issues. Like Jimmy the Greek, you don't know who Jimmy the Greek is. Jimmy the Greek was a guy who was famous for betting and stuff, and somehow he got a job in the NFL. And he was explaining on a Monday Night Football game why blacks were superior athletes, and he goes into because of their bodies, because the way they built, they run fast. It was crazy. Yeah, he talked about genetics, but that thought was a thought people had. He just said it out loud. And I think if you move it forward, and I want to get back to Philly sports, that's some of the issues you deal with. And then even in Philly sports, you deal with the reputation. We threw snowball at Santa Claus, which is not wholly accurate. He was a very bad Santa Claus, we understand. And it wasn't Santa Claus. He was terrible. He was drunk. The story I hear, he was drunk. And nobody wants to take your kids and you see a drunk Santa Claus. But anyway, I think because of recognition that they should get. Unfortunately, we got a lot of Dallas fans here too.
That is surprising to me, like how many Dallas fans you meet in the city.
Yeah. But one thing I say about Dallas fans, and if you're watching, if it's you, it's you. If it's not a lot. I know a few that I got to give a shout out to. There's a guy named Terry Ellaby I haven't seen in eons. Terry away, regardless. But there's some people, man. If Dallas not winning, they not putting that gear on.
They're not talking.
No, there's a guy, Isaac. Isaac wears his hat all the time. And I tease him. I said, the reason why the Cowboys have 1 star is because it's just not that good. You wouldn't go to a 1-star restaurant. You want 5-star. But he does wear his hat. But I want to get back to Philly sports, man. I mean, so what was it? See, I know when I was growing up, they were winning. Our complaint was they could never win a big game. Our complaint was they couldn't get past Boston, or they got past Boston, they got beat. They were all primed to win the championship. Game 6, Sixers up 3-2. Game 6, they're playing the Spectrum. Kareem gets hurt. Magic Johnson is the center. We're thinking, this thing. No, I'm sorry. This was the deciding game. The Sixers could have swept them, yeah, but they could have won, yeah. And Magic Johnson goes out there and plays center and beats up on all 3 of our centers: Darryl Dawkins, Harvey Catchings, and Caldwell Jones. You're not supposed to do the championship rookie Magic Johnson playing center, but they should have won. Kareem got hurt. Everybody thought, they were going to let him rest.
That's supposed to be
because the Lakers couldn't win. The Lakers was like, hey, and the funny story is they said Lakers was like, we're going to tank the game because they thought they couldn't win without Kareem. And Magic was like, nah, we're going to play this game. And they won. So, I mean, everybody thought that was the best time. We had, and then when they went out, they got Moses Malone. We thought we had a dynasty. We had Moses Malone, Julius Erving, Bobby Jones, Andrew Toney. That is that team. And then they drafted Charles Barkley.
Oh, that sounds like a dynasty to me.
I think, but then one year they traded everybody. Charles spent 1 year, and then the next year the Sixers had the number 1 pick in the draft, already having Charles Barkley, Moses Malone on the roster, and they traded them. They traded them to Cleveland. Cleveland's up drafting Brad Daugherty, who was a solid center. And we ended up with Jeff Rulin, who had no knees left, couldn't jump over a soda can.
Who?
Jeff Rulin, that's my point.
Oh, my God.
And Roy Henson, who was done. elastic, and then we had Cliff Robinson who had Jerry curl. That's what I remember about him. They sucked. So me being as long as them, I remember those days. I remember when they traded for Charles Shackelford, and Charles Barkley still tells his joke. Charles like, yo, I need help. So his agent calls him up and says, yo, we just got Shaq. So he gets in his car, rushes down to the Spectrum, and he said, and it's Charles Shackelford. He said, y'all got and we know how that worked out. They didn't do anything. So they have a history of blowing. And the Sixers have had a number of draft picks for a while. So, we have not, since the 80s, we haven't really celebrated a successful team. We're starting to get it now. I think people are getting spoiled because now we're back to the near misses. We passed not making it. We passed the process, but we're not. We can't get over the hump.
I was going to say, I find it pretty interesting because for all I can remember, the Eagles had definitely been way more successful than the Sixers. You go to Donovan McNabb making 4 straight conference championships and Super Bowl. You got Andy Reid, of course. That's another storyline. Andy Reid coaching against his former team, but
after he couldn't get the win,
we'll see. He's probably not going to get the win this week. I can let y'all know that now.
Yeah, we hope not.
But the Sixers, you had 2001, which was an incredible run. But I feel like after that, there's a lot of mediocrity and a lot of losing. And then the process, that started when I was like probably middle school, high school. Seeing that constant losing, like, oh, we're literally going to tank on purpose to make sure we get these picks. So it was a lot. It was a lot of heartache. I remember going to a Sixers game for like what, $20.
Yeah, man.
You get a good seat.
Remember, we used to go. We went a lot, and then we stopped going because the product was so terrible.
Yeah. At some point,
it wasn't just that they were losing. They were missing layups. They were throwing the ball away, not being pressured. But Philly fans have suffered. We have suffered. But right now, come on, man. You got the Sixers, at the third best record, in the East. They're playing well. Second or third best record in the East. Nets don't look like they just got rid of Kyrie.
So, and KD, not coming back for a little bit. So
and Ben Simmons is Ben Simmons. Unless Boston pulls the trigger and get KD, that's an interesting matchup. So, Sixers got a shot, man, at least get to the finals this year.
It's more open than it has ever been in the past, 10 years?
But I think the Sixers are better, too, so I don't want to take it away from them.
They got a nice team.
I don't want to take it away from them. They got, James Harden had a year to get his feet wet. Tyrone Maxey is playing outside. He's just turned into a superstar. Maxey's just there. So I think, my issues with Doc. But I think other than that, I think, and they got a good bench. With Melton, those guys coming off the bench, they have a good, solid bench. Melton, Reed, they're going to be okay. But can they get to the conference championship, and then can they take the next step? See, I think with the Phillies making it to the World Series when nobody expected, that automatically raised the bar for everybody else. Because that was supposed to be the least talented team. That team just started out terrible. And everybody was tanking, and everybody was like, it's over, and they were on this run. So I think that kind of raised the bar. Then if you move to Sixers, got off to a terrible start, so people weren't really paying attention to them, and they were hurt and injured. And then the Eagles, they just every week they got better. They just got better every week. If Jalen Hurts doesn't get hurt, they may be 16-1. And
that is true.
Yeah, they may have been 16-1
when he started.
Yeah, and that was the Commanders, and they wouldn't have lost to the Saints. And Gardner Minshew almost beat. People don't realize it. They were on a game-winning drive
with Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, remember they were on a game-winning drive, and the play calling got in the way too. But they were on a game-winning drive. When a couple misplays, the screens that didn't work and everything, they ended up turning over on downs. But they could have very easily been 16-1. And I think that kind of spoiled it, but it's also wait and see, because again, how quickly they turned it around. Because it was only 5 years ago they won the Super Bowl. It was 5 years ago they won the Super Bowl.
2017.
Yeah. It's only 5 years ago they won the Super Bowl, and you got to remember this is kind of a revamped roster.
I mean, you still got some key players here and there that were
Yeah,
on the Super Bowl
but
team,
you got,
in
but not many.
totality,
You
I
got to
don't
figure.
think-
You got to what you got. I mean, that's playing the key role now. You know, both wide receivers are brand new. You know, you got a brand new quarterback. Your whole backfield is brand new. You know, Kelsey and Lane Johnson only holdovers from the line. So you got 3 out of 5 brand new linemen.
Was Dallas Goedert there?
No,
Was that the
Dallas
year after?
Goedert wasn't there. He came after.
Yeah,
You know, Ertz was the tight end.
yeah.
You
I know
know,
Brandon Graham was
yeah.
there.
So he's going. So on the defense side, you have Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox,
Yeah,
and that's pretty much
yeah.
it.
I'm about to say I can't even think of it.
So I'm saying they got some guys, but it is remarkable that you win the Super Bowl, you win 4 games, and then you're back in the Super Bowl that fast, and you still got 2 number 1 draft picks.
Yeah, but I feel like people are not talking about enough.
They got a top 10 pick.
How many?
They got a top
picks
10 pick and another pick. So they got 2 picks in the first round. I mean, and they got some wiggle room because you don't. They got to re-sign Bradbury, and I don't think it's going to happen because he wants to get paid unless Jalen Hurts kind of gets extra friendly and nice. But you got to figure you don't have to use a top 10 pick on a cornerback. This is a destination people are going to want to come to, first of all. So if you think you got a guy that's definitely a lockdown starting corner, use a top 10 pick. But typically you can get a cornerback in free agent or lower in the draft. You know, so you could trade down and pick up an extra pick. Yeah. It's just so many things you can do. You know, they need a defensive lineman, you know, because they got a good, but they're old. You know, they got a nice young core, but you got to keep going. You know, the future linebackers right there on the bench just can't get off the bench because they're so well. The Cool Dean, because he drafted them last year. You know, you can get a couple more years out of Slay. You know, you got Gardner Johnson. So they're in pretty good shape to make a good run.
Yeah, so let me ask you this: what are your feelings heading into the Super Bowl?
Oh man,
it's Wednesday. You know, you're getting closer and closer to the day. What are your feelings and your thoughts?
I'm going to surprise some people. I did the same thing at San Fran, and people thought I was crazy. You know, I was in the barbershop, and someone asked me, and I picked up at least 2 touchdowns. And everybody said, and I'm going to tell you why. I just think, and anything can happen, so I can't guarantee a win. They're the most physical football team that I've seen in years. You got to go back to before you were born, when the Steelers had the steel curtain, and they had Webster and those guys on the offensive line. You know, when the Raiders had Shaw and all those guys on the offensive line, they had Howie Long and them guys on the other side. You know, you just don't. I have not seen that physicality in football on both sides of the ball on one team in a long time. You know, I haven't seen somebody say, okay, you know we're going to run the ball, stop us. We just going to the whole fourth quarter, we're going to have this 8-minute drive, and you know we're going to run it, stop us. They are that dominant. You know, they're the only team that I watched this year, and I watched a lot of football that I've seen in the last 5 years where they really don't have an identity. And what I mean by that is some teams going to run the ball, they're going to beat you with the run. Some teams going to pass the ball. They'll beat you anyway. Okay, you want to get into a shootout? We're going to throw the ball 35 times.
But that being said, I wouldn't want to get into a shootout with Patrick Mahomes.
Well, see, I don't think it's going to be a shootout. They're going to score, but I think the Eagles' defensive line is going to cause a
especially with that
ankle. Oh, yeah. So I think what it's going to boil down to is how well our corners stay on coverage and not drop, when he starts scrambling, because he's good at that. Patrick Mahomes is good at that. If they can stay on point and keep coverage, but I just think our defensive line can overwhelm their offensive line. I think, just like San Fran, I think Reddick's a beast. Man. And people don't feel Graham is playing his best football since, man, he's 20 years old again. And then you still got Hargrove. They had 10 guys on the line that had 9-10 sacks. You got Riddick on one side, you got Swell on the other side, who was a Pro Bowler last year. People forget that. And he has 9 sacks this year, so he could have been a Pro Bowler again. You got Hargrove and Cox up the middle. You got a guy that nobody talks about, Jordan Davis, who just eats up blockers and just eats up things. And then you still got Sue and
Sue.
Yeah, and what's the other guy they picked up? Joseph Livell. And then you forget the guy Harris they picked up from that got hurt. That just came back, the pass rusher from the Bears.
I know you're talking about.
Yeah, so they're well rested because them guys have not been playing a lot of snaps. So I just think physically, I think they can overwhelm them. I think the game's going to come down to how. I'm going to tell you first of all, offensively, I think the secret weapon for the Eagles is going to have to be Quez Watkins because
why is that?
Because he's the guy that's going to get one-on-one coverage. They're not going to double him. They're going to try to take him away. They're going to try to take AJ away. They're going to try to take Smithy away, and they're going to try to keep Gallard. They're going to try to keep Goddard in front of him, and they're going to try to contain Jalen Hurts. Quez Watkins can be the star of this game. If not the star, he can be the game changer with a couple long passes. Mm-hmm. You know, he can be the difference because they're not going to use resources to stop him. It's not going to happen. And I'm going to tell you who they know, but I'm going to tell you who I think is going to be another star is going to be Kenneth Gainwell. I like Miles. Miles dances a little too much sometimes. And Gainwell,
I really like Miles Sanders.
I do, but he dances sometimes too much. Sometimes you got to hit the hole and go. You know, and I don't know if he doesn't catch well, but they don't throw to me, they got to throw the ball to the backs. You know, when you got that kind of firepower on the outside and they going down the field, that means your backs is one-on-one with linebackers. You got to use that. You got to use that. You know, you got to take advantage of it. And you still got the threat that Hurts can take off. So I think unless the Eagles turn the ball over and our coaches shoot us in the foot because sometimes our offensive play calling sucks, I think the Eagles should win this game by 2 touchdowns.
If you got an exact score in mind, let us know what you think. What's the exact score?
See, and people will think I'm crazy. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a blowout. I wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a blowout. But, you know, because the Eagles' strengths are both Kansas City weaknesses. Kansas City got the best quarterback in the universe. I wouldn't even, you know, but Jalen Hurts is good enough to put up points against them. The Eagles run the football extremely well. Kansas City don't stop to run all that well. You know, Joe Nixon was putting the hurting on them. You know, that's how, you know, Cincinnati beat them a couple of times like that. You know, so they don't stop to run that well. They got a bunch of rookies that's going to be starting out there in the secondary.
You got to take advantage of that.
Yeah, just saying if Hurts needs to have a game though, he can't have a mediocre game. He has to play. He has to be the Jalen Hurts before the injury.
I'm about to say, you think his shoulder's holding up?
I don't think it matters because I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen. This is the last game of the season. There is no next game. So all that saving myself thing, you know, in his mind, especially if it gets late in the game, I got all season to heal. And they have enough horses. Like if you go back to the San Fran game and we talking Philly sports, I just think our offensive coaches got in the way because if you watch the game, they had that 5-yard pass to Dallas Goedert anytime they wanted it, and they got it. And they were averaging 3 yards a carry. 3 yards and go, yeah, because 5 and 3 is 8. That means you're 3rd and 2.
Yep.
They lead the league in conversions on 3rd and 2. But instead, they kept trying to do the other stuff, putting themselves in a longer situation. So I think, you know, if they just stuck to the game plan and took what they gave them, you know, cleared it out and then use your backs, you know, because Warner and the linebackers had concrete. They weren't going even because of Jalen Hurts. I think they could have inched the ball down the field. But they still put up 30-something points.
And that's on a pretty solid.
Yeah, so I think defense. I mean, it's hard to tell. I like them by 2 touchdowns. I think it can be a blowout. You know, if the game is a shootout, it's probably going to be just like the Super Bowl with New England. And that's when I get worried because that means whoever has the ball last could possibly win.
I think it's going to be a field goal.
And that's going to – well, see, that's what it's going to be. Well, see, that's when it's going to get scary because dude is the best quarterback in the world right now, man. I mean, he finds ways to win.
Yeah, in 8 seconds, he can get you in field goal range.
He finds ways to win. And, you know, 8 seconds, the Eagles playing prevent defense. It's not like they line up and saying, beat me. Mm-hmm. They giving away this stuff. So you can't, you know – so it's going to be interesting, man. But Gardner has to have a good game at safety.
I was going to say, would you think they should do against Travis Kelce?
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you what else is going to come down to how well Maddox plays. Maddox in the slot is going to be huge, man. Maddox in the slot is going to be huge.
Expound on that. Why do you say that?
Because between him and Gardner, they're going to have to cover Kelce.
Double him.
Well, you can't double them because you still got to play. They got a decent running game, and you got to respect them. But I'm saying, you know, you can double them by using a linebacker. You can take a cornerback to cover them on and chase him into a linebacker. But I think your linebackers have to play really well. But Maddox is going to be because he's the slot guy. He's a slot guy, man. So I think with Slay and I think with Bradbury, you know, they haven't really been tested all year. I mean, all game, because it's, you know, I said this to somebody the other day. When you got 70 sacks, it's kind of hard to throw the ball down the field all the time. So, but the difference is, McComb, he can buy time. He can buy time and scramble. And he doesn't scramble to run. He scrambles so his guys can get open, and they do a good job of that. They do a good job of that.
But he will take off.
He will,
that
but
last option, he will take off.
I'm not worried about him running. If their offense running, the Eagles got this game. If their offense is based on him running, we got this game. Kansas City's they're in trouble if they got to rely on him running. You know, they're in trouble because plus when he run, he gonna get hit. That's one thing about the Eagles. They will hit you.
Yeah, them boys get hit.
They will hit you. And he's not the best slider in the world. You know, he's not, Mahomes is not the best. So I think, I take him running before I take him throwing the football. I would.
All day.
Oh, come on. Knock yourself out. Because he ain't going to run the ball 9 times down the field for 90 yards. All day long. But I just think on paper, the Eagles, they have too much for them. If the Eagles play, but it's going to, again, Bradbury and Slay are going to be tested all game, because even when Mahomes is under duress, he gets rid of the football. So they can't take plays off like against Dallas when it was 3rd and 30. You can't do that against Kansas City.
He will take that chance.
They did it. When Dallas get rid of that 3rd and 30, you can't do that. That was the game when they played them with Dak. That third and 30 changed the whole game. In Dallas, yeah, that changed the whole game around. You can't be giving up 3rd and 30. You get a sack and then you give up 3rd and 30. So I mean so that's why they're gonna have to be on top of their games. But I think you need Maddox to play really well because he's gonna be a slot guy. Because I'm assuming Slay and Bradbury are gonna be at the top of their game because neither one of them has never been to a Super Bowl again. And Bradbury's probably gonna get out of here because he's gonna want to get paid. Slay, 10 years, he just getting to the Super Bowl. More I like him roaming the field, man. I would like to see, and people gonna think I'm crazy. I would like to see a fastball once in a while, and I put Dean in there. The rush the passer, just to throw him off. Just to throw him off, man. Put him into the blitz. Just to throw him off, man, because he's fast, he's quick, he's strong. If you put him on the same side with a Reddick or the same side with Sweat, that's a monster.
I feel like he had trouble in that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay.
Oh,
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
They kept constant pressure on him. It was like every time someone was coming.
He's exceptional. So I want to make sure that's clear. But most pocket passers struggle against good pass rushes. They can't step up. Most pocket passers want to be able to step up. They want to be able to survey the field. You hold that ball for 4 seconds against the Eagles if you want to. And it's funny because their right tackle is one of the lowest rated tackles in the NFL, and that's Weston Block Reddick. So do you bring in another tight end? I want you to keep Kelsey in the block. Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just saying. So that's the mismatches. If you look at their whole team and the Eagles, the thing about them is they come at you in waves. You got to remember they like 8 deep on the line. They got 3 guys with 9 or 10 sacks.
That is incredible.
Yeah, they had 7. If they count in the championship, if they get 2 sacks, they break the Bears record. But they had 70 sacks during the season, and I didn't notice they had the highest percentage of sacks with just a 4-man front than any other team in the NFL by far. Look at Kansas City had 55 sacks. So you think about that, man.
It definitely is. I will say this:
you're 15 sacks, and here's the team you're playing with.
Yeah, but I will say this: they're often. I'm talking about Kansas City, by the way. They did say they had the number 1 offensive line rated, number 1 rated offensive line. But no. Eagles. Whoever said that is wrong. Eagles are up there. They definitely did say that.
Eagles are the number 1 rated offensive line. Kansas City is the number 1 rated offense. They do. I can't believe because dude is ranked 16th. I'm not 16th. He like near the bottom in tackles. I saw that. I was like, man, that's what I'm lining up on.
Yeah,
That's what I'm lining up. But I think if Gannon comes with different, I think he has to blitz some. You got to keep them guessing. You can't keep because he's smart enough. If you keep doing the same thing, he's going to hurt you. And I think you got to play Kansas City and with if I'm coaching, if I'm defense, I'm playing it. I got to give something up, but I'm going to make him find it. I'm not going to give him the easy stuff that he don't have to think. He going to find this. I want to make him hold the football to find where there's open guys to give my pass rush a chance to get there. That's why I'm looking at it. I don't want to give him the easy, quick check down to Travis Kelce or to his backs. I want to take all that away. I want him to hold the ball for a couple seconds because now I got a shot to hit him.
Yeah. This sounds like it's going to be a very entertaining.
It is. It could end up being a shootout. I just don't think a shootout. I think the Eagles can play that style. I just don't think a shootout favors them. And I know they don't have the same weapons, but if you go back when Kansas City came here, last year, remember for the first half it was a shootout. The problem with it is the Eagles ran out of bullets, and Kansas City kept shooting out.
Yeah.
They
had Tyreek last year too.
But the Eagles have never had to sustain it for 4 quarters. That's going to be the true test. They have never had to, be in a shootout for 4 quarters. And even in the NFC Championship games, you got to remember, they won both those games by 20-something points. By the time they got to the 3rd quarter, they were just running the football to run the clock out.
It was over by then.
Yeah, so that's the part that's going to be interesting. They've never been pressed where, now I got to put up 21 points to keep up in the 4th quarter. That's going to be interesting, man. In the game where they had offensive pressure, it wasn't him, but A.J. Brown fumbled. Goddard fumbled. Goddard had a face mask against Commanders. He fumbled. Quez Watkins fumbled. They key weapons, Miles Sanders fumbled. Remember, they all didn't handle the ball that well when the Eagles had to score to win that game. So that's the part that's going to be interesting. What happens when you get to that point? Now, all 4 of them are not fumbling the game again. I just don't think it's going to happen. But, that's going to be the key. What happens if they get in that kind of game? And because remember, against Dallas, their defense gave up 30-something points, man. They gave up a lot of points against the Cowboys, man. Even though they scored a lot of points, they gave, and I think some of the schemes they played contributed to that. Granted, they don't have Tony Pollard on the team either. Which is a great back.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be interesting, man. I like them. The Eagles should win this game, and they should win this. To me, the perfect scenario is, man, I'm ready to go to bed at halftime because it's like the rest of the other 2 games. They up like 21, but I know it's not going to happen.
I'm about to say that is probably not going to be the case.
But they're the most physical team. And it's funny because physicality is what the Sixers are lacking. I mean, it's funny because they got, and I don't know, and this is a stretch, but I don't know if he scored since he's been here. I know he has his exaggeration. But they brought P.J. Tucker in because they needed to be more physical.
They're 38.
Yeah, but you can't.
He's old.
But we shifting gears and we'll get back to the Eagles. I was talking about this with somebody earlier. You can't win in today's NBA unless you have some type of physicality. That's what Draymond Green brings to Golden State.
Yeah.
You got to have that guy, that no-nonsense guy. I mean, Draymond Green is, I'm not going to say terrible, but he wouldn't even be a factor when you put him on other teams. You know what I mean? He wouldn't be a factor. He would do some box stats, but he brings the physicality to Golden State. He's the modern-day enforcer. Back in the day, the enforcers was the fighters, and he's the guy though that you talk smack, I'm gonna talk smack.
Yeah, like he brings that.
Yeah,
intensity.
He's the guy that you knock my guy down, I'm gonna knock your guy down.
Mm-hmm.
And the Sixers haven't had that in eons. When the Sixers won the championship, they had Mark Alvarone, who wasn't known for that. I mean, wasn't a well-known name, but he didn't take any snuff, man. Then plus they had Moses, who would knock your teeth out too. But they were a physical team. If you wanted to get physical, they could get physical. Boston. That's what the difference to me between Boston and Golden State last year was. That the physicality portion of it. I like Tatum, like great offensive player, but you got to have that guy that's willing to get hit in the nose and hit somebody in the nose. And they just, it's hard to win a chip without it.
Well, let's talk about it since we're on the topic. Who do you think is one player that the Sixers could add to kind of bring that intensity and get them over the top?
Well, see, I don't think it's a player. I think, and I know I'm going to get in trouble. I think it's coaching, man. You got to instill that. I never played at the pro level. Played around the collegiate level. You instill that intensity on practice. You instill, you got to put that dog in them in practice, and you got to find out who doesn't have the dog in them because you got to know who's going to be out there, and they just don't. I think Maxey has it. Harden doesn't have it. And B doesn't have it. They're great players. Plus, they don't have great basketball IQs. Hence, they dribbling the ball, half the shot clock out. And B trying to take 10 dribbles to back down in the paint. Some of the stuff they do don't exactly exude basketball intelligence. But I think, you got to have it. And I think the Sixers, I think you have it in PJ, but his role, that's all he does. He's at his best when he's shooting the open three, man. Chasing, getting offensive rebounds, putting them back in, and things like that, man. And when it is getting it coming off the weak side on different things, there's nobody on the other side because Embiid is out there shooting jumpers, so now he's less effective. He used to being that guy coming in because somebody else is boxing out, clearing out people doing his thing. You can't do that when your center is shooting 3-pointers all the time. Harden ain't down there unless he's getting tip-ins. So I think that's part of it. So who I would like to see him get. I don't know who's available, but I think to me, they let McCollum go to the I would have got him.
TJ. You talking about TJ?
Yeah, I would have got him, man.
TJ, shout out TJ McCollum.
I would have got him, man. No, not TJ. The guy was
CJ.
I would have got him when they was talking, when everybody was trying to get Dillard. I would have took him, man. That guy's a complete player. And then the problem with it was he's not fancy.
Yeah.
He ain't flashy. The thing about him, I like about him, he may not give you 30 a night. He can give you 30 on any given night. That's the guy you want. I don't need the guy that's going to try to give me 30 when I got him beat every night. I need the guy that when beat is not hitting and somebody else is not hitting, I can step in and put 30 up there and have a high percentage, in my shooting. And that's the Sixers don't have that. Maxey is not. I love him. He's not being used properly. You can't. The problem with Maxey's problem, you can't have Embiid dribble the ball for 8 seconds in the shot clock, and then Harden dribbles the ball for 10 seconds in the shot clock, and then you give the ball to Maxey with 6 seconds to go and say make something happen. You got to stop doing it.
Like an actual system, you mean?
You got to stop doing it. Well, you have talent, and you got to, but you got to utilize your talent. I love this, and I'm going back to the Eagles. Nick Sirianni, when the guy from the Giants, Love, said that, he really wasn't a good coach. He was just doing a good job staying on. And what people understand is when you have talent, there's more pressure, and you got to do your best coaching because you got to coach those Eagles. And in order to win with talent, you got to get somebody to do something they're not used to doing. For instance, if you got a team and everybody's used to scoring, and I played on teams like that, ain't nobody in there sucking up to play defense. You got to convince somebody that, I need you to take a few more shots because, if we don't stop them, we can't win.
So that's why Jimmy should have never left.
Well, the manager made a choice and it cost him.
Never left. He was that player. That unfortunately, he didn't take nothing.
But
you get your bucket when you need it.
I'm not disagreeing. And on this team right here, but the problem with my personal opinion is the problem with Jimmy was he had the wrong coach. I think had Doc would have been here,
he probably would have stayed.
I think they could have, but Jimmy is that alpha male who needs to respect you to play for you. And once he lost respect for the coach, it's hard to do. But I think they have the parts, the pieces to be successful. But you can't, like you talk about Golden State, how you want to talk about Golden State. Golden State can, how you want to play this game. Like when they play Ja and them, man, that game is not always a high-flying game. That game gets physical. They down there, man, and they got them young guys, and the NBA is changing because I said it to somebody today. Just look at the Nets with Cam.
Cam Thomas.
Yeah, but just look at the Nets. Yeah, but there's somebody like him on a lot of these teams who just don't get to play.
Don't get the
But that's how good the talent is in this league. I think people don't realize it. That's how good the league is. Era is not like it used to be. When I was growing up, everybody had 1 or 2 players. Sixers filled out a roster. Boston had a roster. Lakers had a roster. But the rest of the teams, man, they had 2 or 3 good players. And now the NBA's evolved, man. Well, these teams have 4 good players or they have 3 pretty good players and a couple good players. And you got a guy like Cam Thomas who's getting his shot. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Tyrese Maxey, who, if Ben Simmons was here, wasn't getting the shot, Ben Simmons get traded. He gets to look what he involved into. So those guys are all over the league. So you got to have an intangible in your team. You got to have somebody that's almost like this Dennis Rodman, like that. You know what? I don't need to score, but I'm going to rebound, play defense. I'm going to get the dirty buckets.
It's a lost art. But
you can't win without him. Just like everybody, Kyrie with the Mavs. Okay, him and Luka going to give up 60 every night.
That's what I was saying. I'm like, who
going to guard? Who will play defense?
And who's going to give up the ball?
But that's the other thing. What's the first time when they start arguing about the basketball? Because you got two prima donnas, and I love Kyrie as a basketball player, as a talent. But you know what's going to happen after he gets settled in? He left Cleveland after they won the chip. Why? He wanted his own team.
He left LeBron James.
I'm just saying, because he wanted his own team. He ended up leaving Boston because it didn't go where he wanted to go. And, the Nets, this is my dream come true. What happened? So my thing is, he's going to go out west, and he got to guard somebody. Oh, that's nice.
I was about to say, it's tougher out west. The guard play out west is insane.
That's, he got to guard somebody, man. And I think that's the part people don't realize, and he needs the ball. He is not, which I believe is another reason why he left the Nets. He needs the ball in his hand. He's not an off-ball guard. He's not. And neither is Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons, they're not. Kyrie needs a ball in his hand so he can attack and make things happen. He's not the guy that's going to be cutting back door and pick and rolling off of screens, and he can do that, but that's not his game.
I'm going to say he's not going to do that.
But that's not what made him an all-star. That's not what made him a superstar. So I think when people look at him for scoring-wise, but somebody's not getting a shot when he's shooting. And can Luka do that?
Is he going to be willing to?
That's what I'm saying. Can he defer?
I don't know. It's different when Kyrie, you're playing with LeBron James. That's at the time best player in the league.
So if you Luka, you out there and you on course to score 40, 45, and all of a sudden Kyrie get hot and he starts raining. Can you handle that? You've never had to deal with that before because it's always been your team. Mm-hmm. Everybody's always deferred to you. Kyrie is not going to defer. When he feeling it, he taking a shot. He don't care if you hit 10 shots in a row. If he think he can take his man, he going to the rack.
Even in clutch situations, he gonna want to shoot the ball,
and he's gonna talk back. He ain't gonna take that crap from Luka Holly. So I don't know. I just for his sake, I would like to see it work out because he's getting like Ben Simmons. He's running out of things to do. Like somebody asked me today about Ben Simmons, and I told him, I said the Ben Simmons' biggest problem is people are gonna not continue to pay him that kind of money to have him not be on the floor in the fourth quarter.
Oh, there's no trade value for him. I don't know.
But I'm just saying, though, but people not, who wants him?
Yeah,
when your coach comes out and says, and we're getting away from Philly sports, I want to come back. But when your coach come out and says, when he was at the Sixers, he did the same thing when they played the Sixers. He passed up a bunny, passed it out. Fans got on him. But when your coach says that I can't have, I don't want players on the floor in the fourth quarter who don't want to take responsibility and score. I need players who want to score. What is he saying? Dude, you're not getting on the floor again. So, and then, whenever he's not playing well, he's hurt.
It's his knee. It's his back. It's like, you missed the whole year. You should be the most rested player.
Yeah, but I guarantee he didn't work out. I guarantee you.
Because his game didn't change at all.
But why should it?
You already got 100 and something million.
No, everybody made excuses for him.
They still are.
Philly fans are tough on him. The expectation. No, let me tell you something. I wish somebody would come to me and say, here's $40 million. I don't care if you make it. I just need you to take some shots. That's the best gig in the world. Mm-hmm. I can at 60, I can do that. I ain't guarantee, and I'm going to hit some. But I'm saying, but his mentality, and you fed the beast. You allowed him to be like that. And this comes back to coaching. Somebody needs to sit him down and say, look, dude. It was funny because I was talking to somebody today, and we were talking about when we both played college ball. And he said, we remember in the summertime we would come home. His coach would call him all the time. Man, your coach ain't calling you. Oh, man, he must don't care. And I would say, no, our coach would give us a list of things we need to work on. And he would say the same thing. When you come back, girls, and you still couldn't go left, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. You still couldn't shoot free throws. You didn't do what you're supposed to do. You out of shape. You breathing. So he knew. He said, you're a grown man. This ain't high school. You a grown man.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you hold it. And I'm guaranteed nobody's ever done that with him. Sat down and said, here's your checklist. And when Embiid got hurt, he worked on his game. That's not his forte because he's never had to do it before. He wasn't great in college. He was good in college. He was everybody. And see, the thing about sports now is, and we just all off a Philly topic, is we pay people on potential now. It's no longer on what you're doing. It's what your potential is. Because we're so afraid that we're going to lose and they're going to go somewhere else. So you got a lot of guys like Ben Simmons now Steph Curry had to work to get his contract.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Jordan had to work. Those guys worked to get their contract.
I remember the narrative around Steph Curry back in the day. He had weak ankles, couldn't really play defense. He was unreliable.
Yeah, those guys worked to get their contracts. These new guys, man, they just give them contracts. And, and I think that's part of it. Like John Morant. And I don't want to talk long because we do go back to Philly sports.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you traveling around with a bunch of dudes with a gun in the parking lot?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Dude, you rich and about to become richer, and you still hanging out with thugs from the hood?
Which he is not from the hood, by the way.
Well, Shannon Sharp was talking about that. But, that's the image a lot of these guys want to have. So let's come back to Philly sports again. This is a great time to be Philly. We talk about everything, but I just think, and I bleed green. I've been an Eagles fan my entire life, man.
Forever.
Got the balls, got a legitimate real helmet here, got my NFC championship hat there, man.
Look what he's
got the bowl. So I it's bittersweet because I remember when they won the Super Bowl, my dad, God rest his soul, we sat right upstairs and watched it.
I was thinking that the other day.
Yeah, we sat up there and watched the game together, man. So before he passed, he had a chance to see the Sixers win. The Phillies win the World Series, and he had a chance to see the Eagles win the Super Bowl.
Can we go to that moment? Because in 2008, I went to the parade. That was probably one of the best feelings ever. Seeing the Phillies win the World Series back then.
Yeah.
Roy Halladay.
It was a good team.
That was
that was one of the better teams that I think, and I've seen. I was here when I think Steve Carlton was probably hands down the best pitcher the Phillies ever had. I like Doc Holliday, but Steve Carlton was just, his curveball was like amazing. And he did it for such a long period of time. And he did it on teams that didn't have, they were pretty good, but not great. But, I was here when they had, I was a kid, but I remember Dick Allen playing first. They weren't that good. But I remember when they started to win, when they had Dave Cash, who they traded for Manny Trio to play in second, Larry Boyle and Mike Schmidt, they brought Pete Rose in, to kind of solidify the infield. Bob Boone was a catcher, outfield. They had Gary Maddox, Jerry Martin was a platoon player. They had Pat Burrell, I'm sorry, Burrell is on the other team. I'm getting them mixed up. But that team with Gary Maddox, Bake McBride, and Milt Thompson was a different kind of team. They were okay. They were good. I think the team when they had Jimmy Rollins, when they had Howard on first, Rollins, Chase, Rowland got out of here, but with Scott Rowland, but that was a good team. That was a good team, man. They had it all.
Almost went back to back.
The difference was with the other Phillies, you had guys who won, who Marty Bystrom, who nobody ever heard of. They called up and he got hot. He won some games for them. But the similarities was Tug McGraw pitched, probably ended his career. He pitched so much. He was a lights out reliever. And then when you look at Scott Lidge, that guy, he was another guy. He was on fire. He just was unhittable. So the parallels, but I think that team with Rollins and Chase, I think they were more talented. I do think they were more talented. He had Holiday, Doc, and he was like, just give me the ball, put it in the book.
There is no better feeling than having that on your team.
Yeah, he was like, this is. But Carlton was the same way. But Carlton he dominated with all speed stuff. Holiday was like, what you want? You want to change up? You want a cutter? You want a fastball? He was like, yeah.
So I know we're sports, but I just want to know your opinion on this. How do you feel? LeBron James passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar last night.
Well, to me, I'm happy for him.
I didn't think that was going to happen.
It's a shame, that people still refuse to give him his due. Like you can't come and tell me now when like Stephen A. Smith says that he's number 2 to Michael Jordan. He's not. He just you can't say that. Dude just got the all time. And if you say we hasn't won championships, then Bill Russell's the GOAT then. If you want to count championships, it's Bill Russell. So you can't have the narrative. I think Jordan came at a time when basketball really needed him, man. I mean, they had nobody to pass the torch to after after Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Basketball was becoming a brawling sport because they was getting so physical with the Knicks, and Indiana, with the Davis boys, and then you had Detroit. So it was getting real physical, and the game wasn't pretty. Michael Jordan came at the right time, and Mike was amazing. Mike accomplished things that was out of this world. But so did LeBron. LeBron came in at 18 years old with all the pressure. He's the king, and he's lived up to it, man. And it's not like it took him 20 games to score 30 points. He's still putting up 30 points, at his age. Yeah, 30-something at his age on a bad team. So I think, I don't get into the GOAT thing because I think you can go back and forth and say, depending upon when you lived and what you see.
A lot of players that got claim stick to
that. But when you become the leading scorer in the world, basically, you leading scorer in a league that's considered the best league in the world. You can't sneeze at that and say he's number 2 to anybody.
And that's a lot of points.
Yeah, you can't say he's number 2 to anybody. And then somebody said, well, Kareem did it with 1 3-pointer. He did the game. It ain't LeBron's problem. The game changed. He's playing within the rules of the game. So this is interesting, man. I just think, he's a great, great player. He's a great, great player. And I think he doesn't get his just due. And I think you do him a disservice when you compare him to Michael Jordan because they're 2 different players. They're 2 different players. And what people don't know, or don't want to talk about was they changed the rules for Michael Jordan. The beating that LeBron James takes today was worse back then. And they changed the rules because Michael Jordan was getting pounded. People forget that part. He couldn't get past the Knicks until they changed the rules. And the Knicks in Detroit used to beat the crap out of him. So I'm saying, because it was a real physical game. And Mike was great. I'm not, it's funny because Mackenzie's into Space Jam now. Mm-hmm. So we watched the Space Jam, the original.
Original?
The original, yeah. We was because he was here yesterday, but I think you got to give him his just due, man. You put up that amount of points, man, and he's still playing. And he can come back next year. That record may never be broken.
He was drafted when I was in one coat.
Yeah, that
kind of crazy.
He was 18.
That's very crazy to be.
The other thing that I like about him is at 18 years of age, how long he's been in the league, there's no scandal. There's no, gambling scandal or, fooling around scandal. He's
throwing no one out the window.
Yeah, I mean, he's been this guy, this dude. And he's been to, 7 championships he's played in? I think 7 finals.
He had like 7 or 8 straight.
7 or 8, yeah. So, I mean, and he didn't win, but that's remarkable. How many guys have never been to one?
Never even make it out.
Yeah, those guys have never been to one, man. So I think he is. I think there's several GOATs, and I think he is a GOAT. I think you can't say, because then people get into the what if. I think I'm not a Kobe Bryant fan, but I think Kobe was probably the most remarkable player that I've seen because this guy was playing, at a certain level, changed his whole game and was still playing at that level. Mm. Most guys get that kind of injury and they become role players. He still was dominating. He came back and figured out another way I can still dominate the fight. Put up 84 points. And that's the old version of Kobe.
Oh, yeah, when he scored 81?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm saying that wasn't a young athletic dude that was jumping or something. He was so cerebral and he understood the game. So you got to, it's almost like a Mount Rushmore. You can't have a GOAT conversation without him in it because he changed the game. And if you listen to the stories people say about him, his attitude impacted players not even on his team.
It's like you seen that 08 documentary on the Redeem team?
Yeah.
They were talking about Kobe
was
got a
powerful.
lot of
Yeah,
respect from even those guys, the top guys, LeBron and D Wade,
and they all said it.
he was that inspirational,
But I
and that
think,
driven.
but I think so. But see, when you talk about GOAT, you got to factor that in. The impact they had on the game.
Mentality.
Yeah, Mike changed the game. But now, and I'm not saying like him, there's a whole bunch of guys taking over the foul line now.
Oh yeah.
There's a whole,
the 10th
yeah.
man could do that.
There's a whole bunch of guys, doing 360s and 180s and windmills. Yeah. I mean, now if you go back and look at somebody like Vince Carter, one of a kind. His dunk's like, yo.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I think when you go to GOATs, I think Jordan is probably, for me, if I was doing mine, if I had to name a GOAT, it would be Bill Russell, because Bill Russell won championships and he coached, and he did it in an era where black folk weren't supposed to be able to do that.
Breaking barriers.
Where he had to be hard, and he was active in civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
What he accomplished with the titles and everything, the respect he had. I would have, if you want to measure on championships, because that's remarkable. 13? Come on, man. And he coached. That's remarkable. So I think, it would be a Mount Rushmore. Jordan would be on it, because I do think he definitely transformed the game. You score more in the history of the game. Everybody in the Hall of Fame right now, who we consider the greatest players that ever played the game, he scored more points than they did. So how can not? Everybody in the Hall of Fame, from Bob Cousy, Oscar Robertson, go down the list of all the greats in the Hall of Fame, he scored more points.
And I personally think he's going to push it up to 40K.
But I'm just saying, he scored more points, so how can he not be in that conversation?
It is an awesome feat, I would say that.
Well, we'll close on this. I think sports has become political, and and it's also a popularity contest. I don't think we look at stuff objectively anymore. I think we look at players and decide, I don't like this player, or this is the narrative on the player, and we move off of that. For instance, you say Jalen Hurts is only good because of people we have around him, but then you make excuses for Tom Brady and for Aaron Rodgers, because they didn't have good receivers. So you can't have it both ways.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say dude suck because you don't have anybody to throw to, but this is only got good because he lost to Tampa Bay. Most people don't remember the receivers he was throwing to last year when he lost to Tampa Bay. Nobody's talking about that. Fred, Ward, Fulcrum, those guys know. Ward, Fulcrum.
Greg Ward,
yeah, and Fulcrum, those guys ain't on the team. And I think Ward is on the practice squad. Yeah. So I'm just saying, but nobody talks about that. Goddard was just getting into his own.
Yeah.
Nobody talked about that. So now he has somebody, which everybody kept saying, we're going to put some pieces around him, see if he's any good. Now he's doing it. Now it's not him, it's the pieces that are around him. I don't, so that's just, again, and doesn't help that he's, and this is the part I got to say, I know we run out of time, that drives me crazy about, is when people start talking about he's boring. So what, he got to get up there and start cursing and grabbing himself and talking about people? He interviews because he's a polite kid. He was raised well.
And I actually prefer seeing that. I think that's great.
Even people's he's what do you want? And people are going to get offended when I say this. So I love Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
But what are you saying? Because he doesn't look like Lamar Jackson with the dreads and things like that. So now he's not exciting. Lamar Jackson's out there giving dissertations. So I'm saying. So what do you mean he's Carson Wentz did not get up there and wow people with his interview.
I was about to say, if anything, he was boring.
I'm just saying. So you sit here and say, he's a boring interview. What do you want him to get? You want to get sound bites because he respects people, he works hard, he's driven. So it's just interesting, the narrative just playing around. I think it carries over to the city, and it carries the team to the city. And I think that's just something that, even if they win this Super Bowl, I'm telling you, it's going to be somebody's going to have something to say. Somebody's going to. Well, he really don't get any credit because they beat the Giants and they beat what's the name without him having a good game. But his presence there helped them have a good game. You saw when they lost early years to the lowly Saints. So you can't say that. So it's interesting, man. But I just think Philly sports fans are the best, man. They can be crazy, but they're passionate, love their team.
I was about to say, how many cities have the passion that the Phillies or the Philadelphia fans have in general for every sport.
But I think when
I
you,
feel like as a player, you would want a team to care that much.
I think when you've been through as much as we've been through as a city, you appreciate it, man. You do. I think you learn to appreciate it, and you are passionate. You get passionate, man. But as we get ready to, sign off.
Yeah, real quick, just want to say real quick as we get ready to sign off and everything. My dad plays the music in the background. Uh, I want to say shout out again to Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. I understand people don't see the importance of that. That now we're getting to the point where they trying to emulate what they do. Everyone's getting quarterbacks now who are a little mobile, who can run and throw. So just shout out to them. Shout out to Philadelphia sports fans. And again, like, follow, subscribe, share, comment, above average black man. That's A2BM on all social platforms. Comment, interact with us. If you got more guests you want us to interview, any other topics you want to talk about, let us know.
We will see you next week, same time. Above average black men. Have a great rest of the week.